Today I'm joined by Daniel Huffman, who is working on the Map Projections card, 2nd edition. Thanks for joining me today.
I'm glad to be here. Thanks for inviting me.
So I have a few decks or a few packs, and I'm not going to probably open them all today, but I just wanted to go through and open a couple while asking you a few questions about the process and the project, because these have been out for a little while in a limited run, but now you're bringing them back for a 2nd edition, or a second run, I should say.
Yes, a reprinting.
So what brought you to the idea of creating the trading card?
I've had this idea kind of poking around in my mind in one way or another for a while. I'm a freelance cartographer, and I'm pretty deeply engaged with a lot of other people in the cartographic community, and I thought it'd be kind of a fun thing to have between all of us if we had some sort of map-related trading card thing. And I thought for a while about what should be the subject of that. Should it be individual cartographers or specific maps? But I eventually, after poking at it on and off for a while, I landed on the idea of projections. There's a pretty good number of them, and I thought they'd make a kind of a fun, really nerdy, inside baseball kind of subject for making collectible cards. And so, starting in the spring of last year, I got serious about actually putting this idea together and, looking at printers and starting to set up templates and inviting people along to help design the cards.
So there's, of course, a number of cards. How many exactly are there of?
There are 77 individual cards made by, I want to say, 64 plus or minus one different cartographers. So there's a pretty wide variety of styles, which you can see now as you're laying these things out. That was one of the fun parts of this project, was getting to see how different people tackled all these designs, because I didn't really do a lot of art direction. I asked people, hey, would you like to be part of this set of cards? And I would, work with them to pick a specific projection they were going to do, but I didn't really have a lot of requirements. You've got to show, maybe the whole planet, usually, in case of most projections, and maybe the graticule, the latitude, longitude lines. But beyond that, it was kind of up to everybody to decide what they wanted to show and how they wanted to do it. And so it makes kind of a fun, varied set.
You had a lot of people who were participating, and of course, the last card is the foil card. But whenever we talk about, the people, other people who were involved, can you mention a few names?
So I actually originally thought that there would not be nearly as many people involved. I came up with this idea, and I thought, I'll probably have maybe 4 or 5 friends and close colleagues who are doing this alongside me, and maybe we'll get 15 cards. I figured that's a good minimum viable kind of trading set. But lots of people joined in, including people who I knew well, but a lot of people I didn't know at all. And that was a really great opportunity to connect with them. But, some sort of names that might be sort of broadly known in the cartographic community, people like John Nelson and Kenneth Field, a couple of people who are pretty well-known cartographers from Esri. Those are probably a couple of the biggest possible names. And a lot of them are names that are more familiar to people if you're sort of within the North American cartographic community. People like Ross Thorne or Dennis McClendon or Vicki Johnson. But there's, a lot of people who, I wasn't as familiar with because I just didn't happen to interact with them nearly as much. And this was a nice opportunity to make some new friends through this process.
Now, of course, you have the Kickstarter that's still going on. What's the last day of the Kickstarter?
The deadline is October 26th, 2023.
And so with that still going on, can you talk a little bit about what people are backing with the Kickstarter?
Yeah, so this is pretty much just a reprint of the existing cards that people are seeing right now. I initially put out a single print run of approximately 15,000 cards. And at that time, I'd offered them for sale on my website, which, if you're interested in learning more in general about what I do, I'm a freelance cartographer at somethingaboutmaps.com. And I just put it out there sort of through my own channels. And I collected pre-orders. Then over the course of the coming months and basically the next year, I would hear occasionally from people who found out about it too late. Somebody lamenting on social media that they didn't get cards, or, emailing me and asking, when are these coming back? And it's a lot of labor, but it's something that I feel good about doing, because it's really, especially after the first print run, it really showed, I think, the value of the project in bringing people together. I saw so many people frantically and excitedly and joyously trading these things with each other online or at conferences. I was at a conference at the NASA's conference last year, handing these out to people, and people would get a pack and they would raise their hand in the air, and then other people would just congregate around them and suddenly start swapping. And it was exactly what I hoped for, to give people this sort of fun, joyous thing that they can pursue that is nice because it's also not important. We think about so many other things in our lives that we devote all of our time and energy to that are maybe more stressful. It's fun to have something you can kind of obsess about that's fun.
It's weird. A lot of geographers, nerds, cartographers, their hobby is what they do. And so, yeah, having something that goes along with that, something physical, was nice to be able to take advantage of. So can you talk a little bit about the different packs that people can acquire, I guess is the right word, through the Kickstarter?
Yeah. So you basically, as a reward for the Kickstarter, you get randomized packs of cards, which are basically the same thing that you're opening up now. Each pack contains 16 cards. There are 15 that are printed on sort of, matte cardstock, and then there is one special shiny foil edition, which is something that's kind of inspired by, premium trading cards or special editions of collectible card games. They can have ones that are sort of coated with this little sort of iridescent mylar to them. And the packs are randomized. And I made that deliberate decision early on because I didn't want to just sell people for the first run or for this Kickstarter run. I didn't want to just give people the whole pack of 77 cards, because that would be fun for a little while. You'd look through them. There's some cool stuff in there, but then it's done. I wrote a little essay on my website actually about the sort of the joy of the chase, and about, sort of to use that, that quote from Star Trek from Mr. Spock, having is often not so great a thing as wanting. And an incomplete collection gives you something to look forward to. It still has some of that joy left in it as you work to acquire it. And so it was a very deliberate decision to not just give everybody the whole thing. And it took a little bit of labor actually to set that up, because I couldn't, I bought 15,000 cards for the first print run for everybody, and I couldn't physically shuffle 15,000 things together. But I actually ended up using a Python script to do it. I just sort of created virtual cards in the program and had it just shuffle them all. This time around, it's going to be the same set of cards printed by the same company in the same way. The packaging is going to be a little bit different. So right now, the cards that you have, they're in these little sort of, simple white cardboard boxes. They have a sticker seal on them. Now, since there's a Kickstarter and there's a minimum that we have to hit for the Kickstarter, which we've exceeded by, a significant fraction already. So it's definitely going to get printed. But I knew in advance sort of what some of my costs were going to be, and was able to price out a better packaging, a sort of a shiny foil metallized mylar pack that is pretty common in collectible card games, for example. So this sort of sealed pack that you can tear open, and it just sort of elevates the experience a little bit. So on the Kickstarter, you can get as many of these packs as you feel like. There's even on the FAQ, there's a listing of your odds of sort of approximately how many unique cards you're going to get based on how many packs you obtain. And I think it's you've got a pretty good chance of getting all 77 cards if you get 20 of them, 20 packs. It's not entirely guaranteed, but your odds are pretty good.
So now I have to buy another 15 packs. Great.
Eventually, or just trade with a bunch of people.
That's true.
Yeah, and I'm going to try and facilitate that a little bit more this time. Last time it was, very much people at conferences, pulling it in the air or shouting across the room, or people on places like Twitter or, the spatial community Slack. This time, I'm probably going to put together just a very simple Google spreadsheet that anybody can edit, drop their name and email address in there and say, these are the ones that I'm willing to give out. These are the ones that I'm looking for. And then people can look down that list and start writing to people by email. And we did have many examples last time, even though I wasn't facilitating it, had examples of people who were emailing somebody in another country that they'd never met before and getting to know them through the exchange of these cards. So that was fun to see.
So you already mentioned it one time, but can you mention again how people can find out more about not just the cards, but also the projects you're working on?
Yeah, so you can find me at somethingaboutmaps.com. And if you visit there, that's sort of my main landing page website. I'm a freelance cartographer and a map making educator in general, based out in Madison, Wisconsin. So there's links to a lot of tutorials and project walkthroughs showing how I do my work. And it links to my blog, which will take you to the Kickstarter, or it also links to my Twitter, which will take you to the Kickstarter. I'm sort of promoting this broadly across all my channels. So if you find me, it won't be very far to locate the Kickstarter, which is running until October 26th. Aiming to have cards delivered in the next few months to everybody.
Are you going to be at NACIS this year?
I will be at NACIS. That's a great point. Yeah, come find me at the NACIS conference. I'm pretty well, I'm pretty well fixture in the NACIS scene every year. So if you don't make it this year, it's a great place for discussing cartography and other sort of geospatial nerdery held, every October throughout North America.
NACIS is always one of those that's a perennial and always a great conference for anybody who not just interested in specifically cartography, but any portion of geography where you're trying to do representation of information.
Yes, and it's a real place where sort of map nerds from all walks come together. Librarians, historians, academics who are studying map cognition, freelance cartographers, and people sort of working day-to-day map production. So it's a real sort of multi-faceted look at the discipline.
Thank you very much for joining us tonight, Daniel, and hopefully more folks will find the Kickstarter before it's over.
Yeah, wonderful. I hope they do, and I'd like to get these in as many hands as possible. Thanks for having me.